base for my piece today is a circle of plywood. I picked this up at my local scrap shack. It's a charitable organisation. They take a lot of factory waste and scrap products, basically anything that might have made its way into landfill, and they sell to the public and to craft groups and local community groups for a really good price. We have these up and down the country here in the UK. I'm not sure if this type of program exists in other countries, but I think I paid £1 for this. I bought several of these. They were £1 each, and it's just a circle of plywood, and I thought it would make a really good substrate for a mixed media piece. So I've begun by just preparing it with a little clear gesso. I've just given it a quick coat and let it dry. I'm hoping that that'll stop my matte medium and paint from soaking in too much, as wood's quite a porous thing, and I just wanted to seal it before I began. So I've given that a quick coat, I've dried that, and I'm ready to go. And I'm going to begin by collaging some scrapbooking papers for my background. I've been having a bit of a sort out in my craft room today, and I found not only had I got some Halloween papers that had got a black and orange colour, I'd got a set of Project Life papers as well that were black and white and orange, and I thought that they'd coordinate quite well to create a bit of patterned interest in the background of my piece. So I'm literally just going to tear some pieces and roughly collage it into the background. I'm not being too particular. This is going to have other layers put over it. There's going to be some paint and all sorts on here, so I'm not too fussed how it looks at this point. It's more about just creating a bit of design rather than just painting in the background. Why not use some of what we've got? And I've got so many scrapbook papers. I don't do a lot of scrapbooking, and it's a shame that they're just sort of sitting there not doing very much. So I'm just deciding how and where these pieces might go, and once I'm happy with it, I shall be sticking them down in place with some matte medium. So that's the sort of general layout I think I want. I don't mind that they're overhanging the edge. I can trim that off with some scissors or a knife once they're glued down. But for now, I'm just going to get the matte medium and a paintbrush, stick them down and make sure that the edges are all down and give it a quick dry before I move on to the next step. Now that my matte medium's dry, I've trimmed around the edge with a knife, so I've got a nice finish around the outside of my circle, and I need to knock this back a little bit. I love the colours, I love the designs, but it's very, very busy, and I need the focus to be on what we're going to put in the foreground. So I've got some Dina Wakley acrylic paint in buff. This is the heavy bodied acrylic. I'm just going to squeeze some out into my palette and roughly apply over this background. You'll still be able to see the colour and the design through it, but it won't be so obvious and so busy. And it'll just make this fade into the background a little bit. It'll also warm the white up as well, which is very, very stark. And I do like this buff colour, just as a sort of a neutral shade. I'm also going to take some of this Sedona colour. This is like a rusty colour, a nice sort of burnt orange. And I'm going to add some of this, focusing more around the edges and in certain areas where I feel we need a bit more colour. For example, here, there's a lot of white space here, whereas there's more darker colours over here. Again, I'm not too fussed about brush strokes showing. It's adding to texture, it's adding interest. And I just do think that that's the nice thing about mixed media. You want parts of each layer to be visible. So I want to be able to see the papers through the paint. I want to be able to see this layer of paint. So to see the brush strokes is more interest. And it's just taking your time. If you're not sure, step back, come back to it, have a little look again. Try and get some sort of a balance. I'm going to take some of this Sedona around the edge. I think I'm going to be putting some ribbon or something around the edge of this when I'm finished. But it would be nice just to have some paint in case if I do choose ribbon and it's not quite the same width as the thickness of this piece of wood, then at least it's not going to have any bare wood showing, so it's just going to be finishing it off nicely. The last colour I want to add to this background at this point is the peacock colour, which is a really nice sort of turquoise teal colour. I only want a little bit, but I think it will just add a pop of colour, a contrast, as it's an opposite colour to the warm sort of orange and red tones that we've got. And that really is enough. I don't want too much of that. I want that just to sort of pop, and I think it lifts the whole colour palette. So I'm just going to wash my brushes off, just wash my hands off, and I'll give this paint a quick dry, and then we can move on to the next stage. The next thing I want to add is some background detail using some stamps. And I've got a selection of stamps that I'm going to use. I've got these diamonds here, which are from the Visible Image De-Stressed Backgrounds set. I've got this rather nice dots, which is a joggle stamp. That's a background noise dots stamp. Really like that one. And the last one I'm going to be using is one of these orbital stamps from Visible Image. Sadly discontinued now, unfortunately, so I'm sorry you can't get that. But you could do something very similar with a black pen. It is literally a doodled circle, so you know it's an easy one to replicate, but I do like it, so that's why I've hung on to it. I'm going to be using archival ink because that's my preferred ink to use over a painted surface. And I'm just going to randomly add some extra detail before moving on. So this is Tiger Lily Orange, and I've got Jet Black as well. And again, just sort of randomly applying some more interest to the background, just until I'm happy with the finished result. And as you can see, the stamping again just adds a little more interest. I haven't bothered to go right here in this central area because that's where our focal image is going to be. But I feel I've got quite a nice balance going on around the whole piece. I've been quite a happy accident here that the word life has been circled. I didn't intend that. I don't know whether that will still be visible when I'm finished. But things like that sometimes happen and then can change the course of where you place things. So I will sort of take that into consideration if I can do when I'm continuing. I've let my ink dry and that's not going to move now. That's really good. And I just want to add a few sort of splashes of white just to contrast from that black. So I've got a bit of white gesso, popped some in my palette, and this is just a bottle top. And I'm just going to dab that in and make some circles, just making some marks here in the background. And I thought circles would be quite nice. We've already got that circle stamp, so it's always nice to have some sort of reasoning for continuing with a motif throughout a piece. So quite happy with that. I think I'm just going to add a couple of white splatters to it. And for that, I'm just going to get my paintbrush. I'm just going to add a little water to the white paint to thin it down. And that'll just help it splatter a bit more easily. And then just tapping the paintbrush. And that's just added a little more interest. Hopefully you can see that well. So once again, just going to get this dry, wash my paintbrush, and finally we should be getting on to the main focal image at last. While my background is drying, I've made a start on the focal image, and for this I've just sketched out a whimsical girl. She's got cat ears, she's going to have some whiskers, sort of Halloween costume, sort of quite whimsical and cute, nothing scary, nothing particularly terrifying. And I'm going to be colouring most of her in. I've got some Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons. I've got some colour pencils. I do want to paper piece her dress though, and I've got a little bit of 6x6 paper here with that nice teal colour that we've used as an accent. And I shall be cutting out her dress shape and paper piecing that on. But I want to make a start and just get her skin tones and her hair, get that in place. And then she can be cut out and her dress glued on. So I'll probably speed through this process. I do have a water brush here with some water in the barrel. You can use a wet paintbrush just to blend these neo colours together, and it just gives a softer effect. The paper I'm using here is some Faber-Castell mixed media paper from a pad, and I have sketched the outline with my Stabilo All pencil, which is also water soluble and will help give a little bit of shading around the edge as I go. Now I'm going to cut out the figure so that I can trace around her and cut her dress out and paper piece that on, and then we'll be ready to attach her onto our background. So there she's cut out now. I'm just going to get my pencil, and the easiest way to do this will be to just mark where I can around here with my pencil. It's a really simple shaped dress. I've done that deliberately, and I should now just be able to cut that out. And the trickiest bit, although not that tricky, will be to just cut out where the collar is. If you don't want to try and cut the collar out of the pattern paper, just leave the edge straight at the top and cut a little white collar out and stick it on the top of it. But I'm happy with that. That'll do me. So I'm going to glue her dress in place and then glue her down onto my base, which is now dry. So I can bring that back in again. And she's going to go somewhere like this on here. So I'll get that stuck down, clear some of these out of the way, and I'll be right back again. So our girl's in place, her dress is in place. And I'm going to go around the edge with my Stabilo All pencil again, just for a bit of shading behind her, just so that she'll pop from that background. I'll go around with the pencil and then blend out with the water again and just sort of blot it until I'm happy with the results. And just a few finishing touches with a white Posca pen now. And I'm going to add a sentiment. This is a printable sheet from Artful Playday's Facebook group that was free for the members in the group. And I'm going to use, there's two phrases, there's the black cat and don't let curiosity get the better of you. And I thought they might be quite nice just to add in. I think this is pretty much done. I do want, however, to darken the edges just a little bit. And ordinarily I would use Distress ink for this, but Distress ink is water reactive and it's likely to transfer and not dry very well on top of this. So I'm just going to use my foam applicator and a bit of the jet black archival ink and just sort of add a bit of ink around the edge just to darken it off. And I know that this will dry and become permanent, and then if anybody handles it, it's not going to start smudging or moving about. So I don't need too much. I just feel that it needs some, just to sort of frame it off a little bit more. I think it'll tie in quite well with the fact that we've outlined the figure in black there. Much happier with that. I think it finishes it off quite nicely. Now that can either be just heat set with the tool or just left to dry naturally. It's entirely up to you. And I've got some narrow black and white gingham ribbon. And I'm just going to attach that around the edge. I'm just going to glue it in place like that. So glad that we added that paint, because obviously we're going to see that on either side of it. But I think this will finish it off quite nicely. So as soon as I've done that, I'll be right back. And here we are, all finished. Really pleased with how this turned out. As always, I never have a fixed plan when I'm working on these sort of things, and really right up until the point where I started to produce this focal image, I had no set image in mind for what I wanted to do. I wanted a figure of some description, but that was it. And you know, I'm really pleased with the colour palette. It's October, you know, if you're watching this now as it comes out, Halloween season is upon us, and this has Halloween overtones to it. It's not overtly a Halloween, but yeah, it fits in very nice with the season. I'm happy with that little bit of trim around the edge. The background layering that we've got, it's really easy to do, and something that you know, if you've got scraps of paper that want using, put them down, give them a wash of paint, build on some stamped and painted layers, and just really see how you go. Much quicker and easier than trying to paint in a background design. So as always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up. Lets me know that you've enjoyed it and this is the sort of thing that you'd like to see. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Click that little bell if you want notifications of when I pop videos up. I will say that next week is the Save the YouTuber hop. This is the second one that we've done. I did one earlier in the year, at the beginning of the year. This time we're spreading it over the whole week. There is video hops going on every day, beginning at Justine Hovey's website, Justine Hovey's YouTube channel. I should be taking part, I believe, on the Thursday. but there'll be plenty of things going on. And you know, if you come and watch the video that I do next week, there'll be links to sort of take you so you can go and see all of the other videos that have been put up if that's something that interests you. You never know, you might find your next new favourite YouTuber as part of the hop, and there's prizes to be won as well, so well worth stopping by for that. But for now, it's getting late now, so I shall say goodbye and thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye.